Right, and we're back today, and as we all know, it's the 6th anniversary of 9/11. It's a day for both somber reflection about those whom we lost and for Thanksgiving for all those who did survive, as for the men and women who made that possible. Two of those men are my guests today, Glen Klein, who was an NYPD detective when he arrived at Ground Zero at about 10:30 that fateful morning, just before Tower 2 went down. He lost 14 of his closest friends in the disaster. John Feal, a demolition supervisor, was part of the army of men and women who worked on the smoldering wreckage known as the pile of the World Trade Center in the largest recovery operation in U.S. history. I find it very humbling to be in your presence because I know what we accomplished. It's a sad day, but I try to find joy because I know that you saved so many lives. Glen, you were one of the first of the guys down there.
Well, I got there, you said about somewhere between 10 and 10:30 as the second tower was collapsing. Actually, when we got down there, the first thing we did is we came across a police officer in my unit, the emergency service unit, who had been buried in the rubble and was covered with debris, and we tended to him first.
So the very first thing you see is a brother in arms already down.
Correct.
So that puts you in a mindset knowing that this is going to be horrific.
Right.
How long did you stay down there?
I was down there until probably 1 o'clock, somewhere around 1 o'clock in the morning, when we were sent back to our command to get some rest. And then we were told to come back again early in the morning. We were back about 7 o'clock the next morning.
John, I know you came down after, as the towers were coming down, and you were part of the team that had to manage the so-called recovery operation. I don't even know if I want to ask what it looked like down there.
It's the most intimidating thing I've ever seen or been part of. And being in the Army and doing construction and heavy demolition for years, I've never seen anything like that in my life.
For all the devastation, and we've seen the pictures, we've heard you all talk. Glen, at 49 with 3 children, you're retired now. But the work that day, that week, those hours, I wrote it down, 700 to 800 hours of work down there.
Right.
John, I don't even know the number when it comes to what you all did because that was your job. Both of you have health problems as a result of it.
That's correct.
Glen, you've actually been diagnosed with cancer.
Well, I had some precancerous polyps in my colon that were removed. When I was in the emergency service unit, we were required to take a medical every year, which I did. And for the 16 years that I was in that unit, my medicals came back that I had perfect health. And in about May of 2003 is when I started getting all kinds of symptoms. And I was sent to a gastroenterologist and a couple of specialists, and they found out that I had GERD, reflux, the 2 precancerous polyps, pockets of diverticuli, a lot of things that I just never had before.
You have the so-called cough. Which is the respiratory
post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, well, what separates from me and Glen is that I have a physical injury.
That's why you're sitting up.
Well, that's last week's injury. I donated a kidney, but on September 17th, 8,000 pounds of steel crushed my left foot.
I know you lost
and
half
I lost
your foot.
half of it. And I spent 11 weeks in the hospital with gangrene. And like Glen, we've been diagnosed with post-traumatic, and I've been diagnosed by 4 doctors with post-traumatic.
People don't understand what that means when they say post-traumatic stress. You relive, we relive it every year. We see the tributes, we see the flowers. It hurts our heart. It makes us remember where we are. But you can relive it every day. Well, every single day.
Through our foundation, we relive it every day because we're helping those just like us. And post-traumatic's at its highest between 4 and 6 years after a traumatic event.
Yeah.
And, add the denial and neglect from our federal government, and that 6 years, it's accentuated. And
I'm angry about that. I mean, Glen, just to watch your face, there's a resignation because I know the day is horrible for you. But, John, you have become sort of the voice of the first responders because you have seen the physical, the emotional, the stressful results, and our government really and truly has let people down.
They've let us down at every level imaginable.
Tell me what you mean when you say that.
Morally, they have not done the right thing. Financially, elected officials are elected into office to serve and protect, and they're just not doing their job. 6 years later, brave men and women who risk their lives without prejudice, they're still sick and dying. And there's no money star or no pill in the world that's going to save their lives, but to treat them with a little dignity and a little class, and to make sure that their families are taken care of when their lives have been cut short. And although 3,000 people died on 9/11, we're going to outnumber them. Our lives have been cut short.
I don't think people fully understand that. We lost 3,000 people on 9/11, and their survivors, rightly so, get the benefits of the government funding. However, the people who will die as a result of helping the rest of us don't get the same benefits.
90% of 9/11 responders don't have proper medical care.
Do you hear what he said? 90%. Glenn, you're an ex-NYPD police officer, so you're in a little different position because you've got your pension and you've got your health care. But your brothers that were moving rubble with you that were not in that position don't.
Well, I am in a little bit of a different position because I do get my pension. But in 1995, Governor Pataki signed a bill called the Presumption Bill. And what the bill said is that if you have an illness now that you didn't have before 9/11, and there's probably about 10 or 12 different illnesses on that bill, that if you're retired, you're entitled by law to change your pension from a regular disability pension, from a regular pension to a disability pension. And so far, I can't tell you how many guys have been getting denied by the city.
That is unbelievable. We can't just on the anniversary, is the point, bring this up. Because here's a tough question. And I love you guys. If it happens again, as angry as you are, as pissed off as they've made you, as depressed as it's made, will you go back in?
In a heartbeat.
I'd like to say no, but it's in my blood, and it's in the blood of all the guys in my unit, because that's why we're in the emergency service unit.
And send the people that are sick back if it happens again. Do not get another set of 30,000 people sick. Let these people who are sick show the way that others, while we're sick, we could still do that.
I want you both to know that I had a big fight with a couple of my producers because we were looking for the first responders who would come, anybody who would take the opposite position and say, given what has happened, our health, the illnesses, what they've done to our family, the government hasn't responded. If you ask that tough question, start where they go back in, we'll get someone who would say no. And I said, you won't find them.
Well, that shows
Americans.
That shows the testament and the resolve of heroes like Glen, and why I started the foundation, because their testament and their resolve and their strength is why I started this foundation, to help them. And it's the Americans across the board in America that makes this a great country. It's not our government, it's the American people. This country was based on volunteerism, and it's the volunteers that went to 9/11, that risked their lives without prejudice, that make them the true heroes like Glen Klein.
I got to tell you something, and you all on that recovery effort, the fact that we can even breathe while we're living in Manhattan, I thank you. You didn't have the proper equipment. I'm scared that what would happen the next time, I'm going to find out a little bit more when we come back.
I didn't have equipment.
Oh, God knows. Much less masks. We can't go there. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
It's inadequate. It'll never be adequate, but thank you. It's just something that we will never be able to express. Your sacrifice and service is what allows us to live, and I'm awestruck by it. It's also going to be the subject of my open letter today. When we return, we are going to hear a little bit more gripping testimony about the time 6 years ago that is permanently etched in our national consciousness, and we're going to be joined by former Congressman Tim Romer.